am Meikah Dado from Texas A&M University.
And I'm Jessica Spence, also from Texas A&M University.
And with Dr. Jack Elliot, we are presenting Going the Distance, an analysis of a long-term international fellowship program. So this is evaluating the organization AgriCorps. AgriCorps is an American organization that sends fellows to Ghana or Liberia to serve as agricultural educators, extension agents, and 4-H advisors. Between 2014 and 2019, they had 6 total cohorts that were sent to Ghana or Liberia, and it has now transitioned into a new program that is USDA FAS funded grant, the International Agricultural Education Fellowship Program, that is hosted at the Borlaug Institute at Texas A&M. So we followed the whole theory of experiential learning for the theoretical framework. As I'm sure a lot of us are aware of this theory, it was analyzing how these fellows went through the 4-stage cycle of experiential learning.
As Meikah said, this study aims to discover the experiences of AgriCorps fellows and make further recommendations to like programs such as IAEFE. So for this study, there were 54 past AgriCorps fellows that participated in the fellowship, and 18 of those fellows became our participants and volunteered to interviews conducted with them that lasted from 30 to 120 minutes, depending on how long they wanted to speak, and semi-structured interviews. We then used our notes, transcriptions of the interviews, and narrowed those down into themes using constant comparative method.
So overall, from the immense amount of data, we narrowed it down to 12 themes, and within those 12 themes, there were 64 different sub-themes. This is an overview of all of the themes, and we'll go through the results one by one.
So starting off with the theme growth after fellowship, the participants expressed growth in many areas post-fellowship with their professional skills, their professional development with connections they made during their fellowships, advanced cultural awareness and the ability to work in different cultural spaces, as well as international confidence and appreciation after their fellowship concluded. And this is a quote from one of the participants that stated, the AgriCorps experience made them a better listener, more inclusive and more respectful to other people's experiences. The participants also expressed a lot of thoughts on AgriCorps as an organization post-experience, and this resulted in 2 very divergent sub-themes with feelings of lack of impact post-fellowship and feelings of great impact and appreciation to AgriCorps as an organization post-impact. With one participant expressing how the distance between their fellowship and where they are now made them feel like they had a lack of impact. The participants also expressed a lot of challenges in varying areas. This was quite a large amount of sub-themes. Challenges with food, integrating into the culture, challenges with language, and challenges returning back to the United States and assimilating back into U.S. culture. Our participants stated that they were trying to get the members of their community to see agriculture as a business was very challenging, but also very rewarding when they figured out how to accomplish that. The participants also spoke a lot about AgriCorps as an organization and their responsibility, including difficulty working with the leadership, different expectations, and the need for improved communication within the organization. One fellow even mentioned that respecting boundaries of fellows, having the ability to have privacy and their own time to reflect and express their opinions without being something that they were controlled about. Fellows also experienced discrimination in terms of their nationality, their race, their gender. Fellows expressed feeling like an outsider due to some of these things, and also on the lines of gender, there were themes of male advancement, but the males also recognized the disadvantages that their female counterparts received. Fellow mentioned that there were certain things that people expected me to do or expected of me because she was female. Another important theme was that the fellows enjoyed the culture. They very much enjoyed the community in which they served and getting to know the culture, and also had many themes of comparing West African to U.S. culture in their interviews. a participant mentioned that there's always someone close by and was talking about the closeness of the community, and they always felt cared for with a sense of community.
So the fellows participated in a lot of reflection throughout their time, and there were varied feelings about reflection. They were given a structured program. Half of them, some of the cohorts were, some of them weren't, but the ones that had still harbored the structured reflection really appreciated that. And some of them found other ways to reflect, such as interpersonal dialogue, communicating with their family back home, or with their fellow fellows. And this one was appreciating the still harbor structured reflection because they felt that they were personally bad at reflection. They also developed their own development philosophy. They learned a lot about sustainable development and questioned whether 10 months was long enough to have sustainable and effective development. And they continue to have these thoughts post-fellowship because of what they experienced within their fellowship. This quote really emphasizes their really questioning of if 10 months is long enough to have effective, sustainable development. It took a lot for them to adjust to the fellowship life. One of the participants even said to make sure that future participants are committed to spicy food before they go. It's just different than what they grew up with and required them to adjust to have that fellowship lifestyle. This one really emphasizes how they did find their jive in what they did in their everyday life, including teaching. They engaged with their community a lot and found that it was very important to build rapport with their community. This included when they were teaching in the classroom with smallholder farmers and especially with their host family. A lot of fellows really described the experience with their host family being a highlight of their experience. And this quote highlights that, of it being completely impacted by it, and they continue that post-fellowship. They also struggled with language. Although they appreciated what AgriCorps provided with the language training, they felt that it wasn't sufficient to be able to communicate with their community. But they appreciated being able to work with their community members to learn more of the local language and allowed them to create those relationships, but it took a while for them to get there. So it was important that they were immersed in the community and they appreciated what AgriCorps provided, but ultimately wish there was a bit more. They built relationships within their fellows, within their community, and with other people that they were interacted with, such as Peace Corps fellows, and continued these relationships post-fellowship. This was one participant that continued their relationship with a Peace Corps volunteer who was in the same community that they were located in.
Based on the insight from these fellows, we have generated recommendations to be implemented into future programming, such as increased language training, like Meikah was just talking about. The fellows received language training, but would like more, and so we recommend that to future programs, as well as a health emergency protocol, and making that very clear to the fellows to eliminate stress, and that is coming from that challenge theme where health issues were quite prevalent within that theme, as well as reflection support. Meikah spoke about that there were two groups of fellows that in the beginning did not receive reflection support, and that was implemented. Those first fellows wished for that, and the second group, or several cohorts, were very appreciative of that. So for that to continue in like programs and really supports reflection.
Continuing with the recommendations, the fellows mentioned a lot of incidences where sexual harassment protocol was necessary and was not available for them. Therefore, we recommend that sexual harassment protocol be clearly outlined for both the support staff and participants so they know what to do within those situations. Continuing with that is mental health support. A lot of fellows needed that mental health support throughout their fellowship and post-fellowship. So we recommend having that available, similar to the reflection support, having a structured system available for participants to take advantage of if they need it. And then that transitions into post-fellowship support. Numerous participants mentioned feelings of anger when returning back to their United States communities and feeling that they weren't able to communicate about their experience, and it was so hard to have others understand what they had experienced within their fellowship. Therefore, we recommend including post-fellowship support after they get back to the U.S. And if you're interested in reading more about our abstract or looking at our references, we have a QR code available for that.
And we'd love to take any questions you have.
Question with 5 minutes for questions.
So as I understand it, there's a fellows program that's going to be going next year in Guatemala, is that right?
So this was AgriCorps. There's now the International Agricultural Education Fellowship Program in Ghana, and it should continue next year in Guatemala.
Okay, so there's going to be a few of them. So are some of those takeaways, like including the sexual harassment protocol, is that something that is going to like have a sense of urgency for some of these program planners, like right now, to integrate into, let's say, for example, that program in Guatemala? Is that easily done right now, or does that need some adjustment?
So thankfully, we conducted this study prior to fellows stepping foot in Ghana and have implemented all of the recommendations based on this study into future programming and would anticipate to continue that. We're also continuing monitoring and evaluation with the current fellows as things change, and so making further recommendations as we continue to grow and learn from them and their experiences on what they need to support them.
What was the other part of the question about Guatemala?
I just wondered if anything drastic needed to be done, like right now, in anticipation of that program, and if there was, any significant changes that needed to be done in development because of these findings.
Absolutely big changes going to Guatemala, even based on what we're doing in Ghana. And much of that is, understand, we want to stay in Ghana. Biden administration is moving all of the discretionary funds to go to the Northern Triangle to prevent migration, to help with mitigate migration. But the Foreign Ag Service is very, very leery of that area. And so instead of the fellows living by themselves, they have to live in threes. So we'll have 3 groups of 3. In addition, they are not allowed to take public transportation. And there's several other, we have to add self-defense to our training program. And there's several other requirements that FAS is requiring us to do. So, but all of this, what Meikah and Jess have done, has been, helped in terms of planning for the future. And what they didn't tell you is I was on the AgriCorps board from the beginning for 7 years, and so then I transitioned into running their core, which is the Council for Research and Evidence. And so we use all of that information to do the best we can. Right, Jess?
Yes, like Dr. Elliot said, coming with the new country would be new safety protocols, like fellows not being able to take public transportation, like they were able to in AgriCorps in Ghana and Liberia, just different country and different needs. So definitely changes taking into consideration any country.
But isn't that what we do in research? We try to get better every time, right?
How have you disseminated your findings to other fellowship programs, like for example, Field of Hope, or other long-term like Farmer Farmer that may be shorter?
So working on disseminating research is exactly what we're doing right here with fellowship programming. Also trying to get research published about this is important. This is different than study abroads as in the short term. It's for the long-term fellowships where participants are on their own, completely immersed into the culture. Therefore, we find it very important for organizations, those involved with FAS fellowship programs to have access to this research.
And additionally, Meikah did disseminate this information to our cohort of fellows so that they would be aware of these past issues as well.
Yep, and continuing that research with the current set of IEFP fellows. Yeah.
So you mentioned Still Harbor for reflection. Can you enlighten us about what that is?
Yeah, so Still Harbor, I'm less familiar with them. They've transitioned to the name Rootwise. So I think if you look up Still Harbor, it's not what we use now. But Rootwise has curated, and they have worked with AgriCorps in the past to change names, but they have curated a specialized guided reflection that coincides with what we know about long-term experiences abroad as far as like the kind of emotional high that starts out at the beginning and different things we know about how people react in situations like that over 1 or 2 years. Their reflection coincides with that kind of research, but supports different aspects and includes readings and videos that are on each topic to support the stage that they're at every month. And so the fellows engage in that independent and collective and group reflection every month. and then have those resources during the times when they're not together as well.
Thank you.
What does your transition post-fellowship kind of look like? You're talking about how there's a need for more of that. What kind of plans did you have? Did you look at other ones in previous literature? What does that kind of look like?
So we have implemented training that is starting sooner than what we know was done in the past, with a trainer coming actually in April, about late April, so a little over a month before the fellows leave, to begin training in processing how to communicate their experience, because we know that was a major challenge the fellows have, as well as 4 days together in the US to continue those kind of post-training or post-experience topics in training. And then we have several months of semi-regular meetings for the fellows to continue to meet, talk about their experiences, and support one another as was more nuanced through our findings of what should be a solution for that issue.
And as for previous literature, there really wasn't a whole lot on providing post-fellowship support, but there was a lot on having that sort of reverse culture shock. So the literature supports having these implemented.
Just invite them to the June 13th event.
Yes, so the fellows of IAFP are hosting a Borlaug seminar where they'll be speaking about their experience collectively, and that will be available online. I could probably send through the AIAE listserv, invite everybody, and you guys can hear a little bit about some of their biggest takeaways from their fellowship. So they'll be doing that towards the end of their post-training when they're back in the U.S.
So this was done before you guys went on all the past fellows, right? So after spending all the time you've done in country and doing all of this work, is there anything that outside of the recommendations you listed, you wish you could have done differently, would have done better, just like practical, logistical things, maybe outside the realm of like health or mental health? Obviously those things have to be corrected, but do you think that there's anything that maybe your nonsense or maybe a different framework or system?
I guess along those lines, something I've thought about that current fellows have expressed as well, and this is limited based on funding, but they've expressed the wanting a longer length of stay, and so an extension of some sort. That's currently not possible and not a recommendation we can currently implement, but I think would be a wonderful one to implement based off of AgriCorps fellows as well as a continuing one from IAPFP fellows. Something that's lingered through even though we've implemented these recommendations.
Is that due to visa country requirements or
Just the cost of the program.
I see.
Also, wait until perhaps next year, we have a mixed method study on the similar program.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So-
Let's give the presenters a